Losing a job can feel like the end of the world. The fear, the uncertainty, the heavy weight of failure. But what if an ancient philosophy could turn that moment of loss into a path toward clarity and strength? This is a reflective journey into how Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, might face being fired, and how his wisdom can guide us through our own struggles today.
The office was quiet that morning. Too quiet, in a way that carried weight. The usual hum of the fluorescent lights above seemed sharper than before. The faint shuffle of papers, the muted tap of keyboards, the sighs of colleagues moving through their tasks. Everything was there, yet somehow distant, as if the whole building was breathing differently. You set down your bag and tried to settle into routine. Coffee first. The bitter warmth against your palm was steadying. Then a glance at the inbox, then the calendar. Meetings scattered through the day, most of them forgettable. On the surface, nothing unusual, yet beneath it you felt a tension you could not name. And then, the call. A voice at your desk, careful but rehearsed. Could you step into the office? The words were simple, the tone polite, but something inside you already knew. The conversation was brief. A manager, or perhaps someone from human resources, spoke in phrases that had been polished through repetition. You heard terms like restructuring, realignment, and moving in a new direction. Their lips moved calmly, almost kindly, but the meaning was unmistakable. The position was gone. Your role was over. The door was closing. There were no raised voices, no accusations, just a script that had been read before and would be read again. A handshake, a folder of papers, words of gratitude delivered with professional detachment. And then silence. You walked back to your desk, each step echoing louder than the last. The screen in front of you, once alive with tasks and plans, now seemed foreign. A few belongings waited to be gathered. A mug, a notebook, perhaps a photograph. Things that once seemed permanent, but now felt like props in a play that had ended without warning. The computer was shut down, the desk was cleared, the chapter was over. And yet, as you stepped outside, something remarkable happened. The world went on. Cars still rolled down the street, leaves still shifted in the wind, the sky still stretched, vast and untroubled. Inside you, of course, there was noise, fear, uncertainty, a racing list of questions. What will I do now? How will I manage? What does this mean about me? But as you walked, another voice began to stir. Not loud, not demanding, a quiet undercurrent of wisdom that seemed to come from somewhere both distant and familiar. It was the voice of Marcus Aurelius. Not literally, of course, but his words, preserved through centuries, written in his private journals, felt alive in this moment. Words spoken to himself during war, during loss, during illness, during moments of doubt. Words meant to remind him of what endures when everything else is stripped away. And if you listened, you could almost hear him whisper, "You have lost a position. You have not lost your reason. You have not lost your nature. You have not lost the freedom to choose how you will live this day." The firing was not the end. It was a reminder. Every role, every title, every paycheck is temporary. They are borrowed for a time, like travelers borrowing shelter along the road. We enter, we use what is given, and eventually we leave it behind. The shelter is not who we are. The job is not who we are. What you are, Marcus would remind you, is deeper. You are reason. You are breath. You are the will that can choose patience over anger, steadiness over panic, clarity over despair. This moment, though painful, is not your enemy. It is your teacher. You sit now, perhaps in your car, perhaps on a park bench, perhaps on the edge of your bed, and let the reality settle. The day stretches ahead, uncertain, unfamiliar, yet here, in the stillness, there is space to breathe. You notice the air moving in and out of your lungs. You notice the ground holding you steady. You notice that despite everything, the world has not ended. Yes, something has shifted, but you remain. Your hands remain. Your thoughts remain. Your freedom to choose how you will respond remains. And in this recognition, a seed of calm is planted. Marcus would remind you, the obstacle is not the end of the path. The obstacle is the path. Losing work does not mean losing worth. Being cast out does not mean being diminished. It means stepping into a different space, one where you can practice the very strength you may have admired from afar but rarely had to test. The strength of acceptance, the strength of patience, the strength of beginning again. So let this day be gentle. Do not rush to fix, to solve, to answer every question. Do not wrestle with what has already passed. Instead, breathe. Allow the uncertainty to exist without demand. Allow the questions to hang in the air unanswered. In time, answers will come. In time, work will return. In time, life will reshape itself around this opening. But for now, your task is simple: to remain steady, to remember who you are, to walk calmly through the first day of change. And as night falls, you may find yourself lying in bed, eyes closed, replaying the words that began this new chapter. We are letting you go. But hear them again, differently. Not as rejection, not as failure, but as an invitation to live more deeply with the wisdom of Stoicism, an invitation to step into life without clinging, an invitation to discover that your true work is not defined by a job title, but by the daily practice of calm, clarity, and courage. This is the day of the firing. It is not the day of your undoing. It is the day you begin again.
The house is quieter than usual tonight. Quieter not because the world outside has changed, but because you are listening more closely than you have in a long time. The refrigerator hums, the soft creak of the floorboards, the faint ticking of a clock you had almost forgotten was there. Every sound feels sharper, every silence deeper, because now, with the day behind you, there is no distraction left. The job is gone, the conversation is over, the hours ahead stretch out, long and uncertain. Lying in bed, you shift beneath the blanket. The pillow cradles your head, yet rest does not come easily. Your mind is awake, pacing the corridors of memory and fear. What will I do tomorrow? What will I say to others? How long before I find something else? Questions multiply in the dark. They have no end. The mind, restless and searching, tries to build a map of a future it cannot yet see. And yet, this is where Marcus would pause you. Not with force, not with denial, but with quiet instruction. He would say, do not try to hold the whole of the future in your hand. It is too heavy. All you need to carry is this one moment. So you take a breath. In slowly, out slowly. You are here, in this bed, in this night. Tomorrow has not yet arrived. Its weight is not yours to lift. All that belongs to you is this single breath, this single heartbeat, this single chance to rest. The body stirs with unease, but you remind yourself,
nothing irreversible has happened. You have lost work, not life. You have lost a role, not your reason. You have lost income, but not your capacity to act with dignity, kindness, and strength. The worst fears are shadows stretched by imagination. They loom larger in the dark, but they are only shadows. When morning comes, they will shrink again. Marcus would tell you, do not be ruled by what has not yet happened. The mind paints monsters, but the present holds only what you can bear. So you let the questions fade, not answered, not solved, but placed gently aside. They are like guests who will return tomorrow, but tonight you need not serve them. Tonight you need only rest. You notice the rhythm of your breath. You notice the weight of the blanket across your chest. You notice the way your body, though restless, longs for stillness. You whisper to yourself, if only silently, I will rest tonight. I will meet tomorrow when it comes. I do not need to carry the whole of life in one evening. And perhaps you imagine Marcus beside you, writing in his journal by the faint light of a lamp, as he often did, writing not for others, but for himself, writing words he would return to again and again. Do not let your sleep be stolen by worry. The universe moves according to its own design. You are a part of it. Trust the flow. Be content with what this moment gives. He was emperor of Rome, yet he too had sleepless nights. He too wrestled with fears of what lay ahead. And yet through his words, you can hear him reminding himself and you that rest is not wasted. Rest is preparation. Rest is strength. So the first night after the firing becomes not a night of despair, but a night of practice. Practice in letting go. Practice in breathing steadily. Practice in surrendering the weight of tomorrow. The sheets grow warmer. The body, though uneasy, grows heavier. The mind, though restless, grows quieter. And slowly, gently, you drift. Not into certainty, not into answers, but into sleep. A sleep that will carry you across the hours, toward the dawn of a new day. A day where you will rise, still yourself, and begin again. This is the first night. It does not undo you, it teaches you. It carries you. And when morning comes, you will be ready to meet it with calmer eyes.
The light enters softly. At first, only a faint glow at the edge of the curtains, then brighter, warming the walls, touching the floor, reminding you that the world has continued its cycle, untroubled by yesterday's change. You wake, and for a moment you forget. Your body rises on habit, the stretch of arms, the slow blink of eyes adjusting to light, the familiar rhythm of another day beginning. And then memory returns, the meeting, the words spoken, the clearing of the desk. The job is gone. A wave of heaviness moves through you. The chest tightens. The mind stirs with questions, reaching again for answers that are not yet here. But then you remember what was practiced last night. The breath, the stillness, the choice not to carry all of life at once. So you breathe again, slowly, calmly, and the weight lightens just enough. Marcus would remind you, when you rise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. It is easy to forget this when something is lost. Easy to let the absence drown out what still remains. But the truth is unchanged. You are here. Your breath fills your lungs. Your heart continues its rhythm. The morning sun touches your skin. The essentials remain. So you rise from bed, not in haste, but with calm intention. Perhaps you make coffee. Perhaps you step outside for a moment, letting the morning air meet your face. Perhaps you sit quietly, notebook in hand, and simply allow the day to unfold. There is no office waiting, no schedule demanding, no flood of emails to chase. At first, the emptiness feels sharp, unsettling, but soon you notice something else within it. Space. Space to pause. Space to reflect. Space to ask yourself what truly matters. Marcus would write in his journal each morning, reminding himself of truths so simple they are often overlooked. He did not write for others, he wrote to train his own mind. You might do the same. Take a pen, take a page. Write not to impress, but to anchor yourself. Write what you fear. Write what you hope. Write what you can control and what you cannot. Let the words steady you, the way they once steadied an emperor who also woke to uncertainty, who also felt the weight of days not yet lived. The morning after the firing is not a test to be passed, it is a practice to be lived. You remind yourself, I cannot control that the job is gone. I cannot control what others think. I cannot control how quickly the next opportunity arrives. But I can control this, the calmness of my breath, the kindness of my words, the dignity of how I carry myself. This is enough. Breakfast becomes a ritual, not a rush. A glass of water, clear and cool. A piece of fruit, simple and sweet. Each bite is a reminder that life continues in small, sustaining ways. You do not need to solve the future before noon. You do not need to rebuild the world in a single morning. All you need is to begin the day with steadiness. And so, you step into the hours ahead with a lighter stride. Not because the problems are gone, but because you are learning how to meet them with calmer eyes. The sun rises higher. The air shifts with movement. The world hums on. And you move with it, no longer undone by what has been taken, but steady in what remains. This is the morning after. It is not an ending. It is the first breath of a new rhythm. A rhythm guided not by fear, but by choice.
The morning has passed. The sunlight has shifted. The world outside continues in its rhythm. Cars moving, people working, shops opening and closing. And yet, for you, the hours stretch wider than they did before. No deadlines, no meetings, no calls demanding your response. The day, once crowded, is now open. So open that it feels unfamiliar, almost heavy. At first, you pace. The mind searches for structure, for something to hold on to. Without the scaffolding of tasks and schedules, you feel untethered. The minutes move slowly, and each one seems to echo with the question, what now? This is the challenge of the empty hours, not the lack of activity, but the noise of your own thoughts filling the space. And yet, Marcus would say, do not waste what remains of your life in imagining the future or dwelling on the past. Confine yourself to the present. So, you pause, you sit, and you remember that the emptiness is not a punishment. It is an opening. The hours that once belonged to someone else's schedule
now belong to you. They are not yet shaped, not yet claimed, and within them lies the chance to practice freedom, the kind of freedom Marcus often wrote about. Freedom not from responsibility, but from distraction. Freedom not from labor, but from compulsion. Freedom to use time as a human being, not merely as a role. Perhaps you pick up a book, not because it is required, not because it advances your career, but because the words speak to you. Perhaps you walk outside slowly, noticing the trees, the sky, the rhythm of footsteps on the pavement. Perhaps you simply sit in stillness, eyes closed, listening to the hum of the world around you. Whatever you choose, you do it not to fill time, but to live time. The mind, of course, resists. It whispers, "You should be doing more. You should be fixing this. You should not waste time." But Marcus would remind you, if you are troubled by external things, it is not the things themselves that disturb you, but your judgment of them, and this you can erase at once. The empty hours are not wasted. They are not dangerous. They are neutral. It is only your judgment that paints them as threat or gift. So, you practice. You let go of the judgment. You let the hours be what they are, open, wide, unclaimed. You fill them not with panic, but with small, steady acts, sweeping the floor, making a meal, tending to something neglected, resting without guilt. Each action, however ordinary, becomes an anchor. And as you move through these acts, you discover something Marcus knew well, that meaning is not found only in grand achievement, but in the dignity of simple living. To eat with presence, to speak with kindness, to work on what is within your reach, to rest when rest is needed. These are not lesser things. These are the foundation of a good life. The hours pass, the fear softens, the quiet becomes less threatening, more gentle. You realize that while you may not control the larger shape of tomorrow, you do control the quality of this moment. And this moment is enough. This is the lesson of the empty hours, that time unstructured is not your enemy. It is a canvas. It is a practice. It is the space where patience, presence, and perspective can grow.
The phone buzzes. A message appears. A familiar voice on the other end. "How was work today?" And suddenly, the quiet of your new reality collides with the outside world. It is one thing to sit with your own thoughts. It is another to sit with the thoughts of others. Family, friends, former colleagues, each one will eventually ask, each one will want to know. At first, your chest tightens. Words rise to the surface, tangled with fear and pride. How much do you say? How much do you hide? Do you frame it as failure, as injustice, as simple misfortune? The temptation is strong to defend yourself, to justify, to explain, to shape the story in a way that protects the ego. But Marcus would remind you, do not waste time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. You do not need to defend yourself with words. You do not need to craft a performance. You only need to live with dignity in how you speak and act. So you answer calmly, "Yes, I was let go." Or simply, "The role ended." No bitterness, no self-pity, just truth spoken plainly. You discover that honesty, when carried without panic, carries its own strength. Some will respond with sympathy, some with awkward silence, some with curiosity that borders on gossip. But none of this belongs to you.
Their reactions are theirs to carry. Yours is only the choice of how you speak, how you stand, how you remain steady. Marcus would write, "Be tolerant with others, but strict with yourself." Strict not in cruelty, but in discipline, the discipline of honesty, of calm, of refusing to let another's judgment dictate your peace. At dinner, a family member may ask, "What will you do now?" You smile softly and answer, "I will take each day as it comes. I will do what I can. I will meet what is within my control." It is not avoidance, it is truth, because you do not need to present a complete map of the future. The future does not exist yet. The present is enough. Some friends may offer advice, polished phrases drawn from their own fears. Start applying right away. Don't waste time. You'll fall behind. You listen. You thank them. And within yourself, you remember advice is not law. You will act when you are ready. You will move forward when it is time. You will do so not from panic, but from principle. Conversations, you realize, are not tests. They are practice. Practice in patience. Practice in honesty. Practice in carrying yourself with dignity, even when you feel vulnerable. Each word you speak becomes an exercise in Stoicism, a chance to embody the calm you seek. And when the conversations end, when the phone is set down, when the door closes, you return to yourself. You sit in the quiet and breathe. You remember that the opinions of others cannot undo your nature. They cannot shake the ground beneath you. They cannot strip you of the freedom to live with virtue. This is the lesson of conversations. You do not control what others think. You control only your voice, your tone, your presence. And that is enough.
The days begin to take on a rhythm. Not the rhythm of deadlines and meetings, but the slower rhythm of hours spent in thought, in small tasks, in the practice of steady living. And yet, into this quiet, another weight slips in. You glance at your phone. You scroll through messages, through updates, through the endless window into the lives of others. There they are, friends, colleagues, strangers, announcing new promotions, new projects, new achievements, smiling in photographs, celebrating milestones, their paths seemingly untouched by the kind of disruption you now face. The chest tightens again. The voice of comparison whispers, "Look at them! Look at you! You are falling behind." Marcus knew this voice well. In his own time, he saw generals rising in power, philosophers gaining fame, rulers of other lands admired by many. Yet he wrote again and again, "Do not waste what remains of your life comparing yourself with others. The soul becomes what it gives attention to." Comparison is a trap. It steals peace by measuring your life against what is not yours to live. So you pause. You place the phone aside. You take a slow breath and ask yourself, what belongs to me right now? Not their career, not their applause, not their image. Only this breath. Only this choice. Only this moment. Comparison, Marcus would say, is blindness to your own path. No two lives are the same. No two journeys unfold in the same way. Another may walk ahead on one road, you may walk ahead on another. Neither cancels the worth of the other. The task is not to outrun them, but to walk your path with dignity. So you practice shifting your gaze. Instead of envying what others have, you return to gratitude for what remains within you. Your reason, your freedom to choose your response, your ability to act with kindness, patience, and strength. These are not lesser achievements. They are the truest ones.
The weight of comparison lessens. Not gone entirely, for the mind will return to it again and again, but softened. Each time it rises, you meet it not with envy, but with calm redirection. This is the lesson of comparison. You do not need to measure your life against another's. You only need to live your life well.
The word hangs in the air, unspoken, but heavy. Failure. It creeps into your thoughts when you least expect it. Not in the conversation with friends, not even in the empty hours, but in the quiet voice within. If I were stronger, this would not have happened. If I were more skilled, I would still have my job. If I were better, I would not be here. The mind, searching for explanation, turns blame inward. Marcus, too, wrestled with failure. He faced defeats in war, betrayals by those close to him, illnesses he could not heal, and yet he reminded himself, "Do not let the misfortune of yesterday steal today. What matters is not what has happened, but how you meet what is before you." Failure, he saw, was not the end of the path. It was part of the path. So you pause and examine the thought. Is the firing proof that you are unworthy? Or is it simply proof that life moves in ways you cannot always control? A company changes. A decision is made. Roles are reshaped. And you are carried along not by your failure, but by the tide of events. The mind clings to labels, but Marcus would remind you, things themselves have no power to label us. It is only our judgment that calls them good or bad. So what if this firing is not failure at all? What if it is practice? Practice in patience, practice in resilience, practice in detaching worth from title. You begin to reframe. Instead of saying, "I failed," you say, "I was tested." Instead of saying, "I lost," you say, "I was given a chance to practice strength." Instead of saying, "This should not have happened," you say, "This has happened. Now, what virtue can I bring to it?" In this shift, the sting of failure softens. You are no longer a victim of events. You are a student of them. Each challenge, each loss, each ending becomes material for your growth. Marcus would write, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." So this firing, seen through the Stoic lens, is not your undoing, it is your training. And as you sit with this thought, something changes inside you. The word failure loses its power. The event itself remains, the job is still gone, but the story around it shifts. It is no longer a mark of shame, it is a mark of practice. This is the lesson of failure. It is not the end, it is the forge. It is where strength is made.
The days are quieter now. The shock of the firing has softened, though its weight still lingers. And yet, within the silence, something new begins to grow. Gratitude. At first, it comes in small moments. A sip of water after thirst, the warmth of sunlight across your face, the laughter of someone you love. None of these things are extraordinary. None of them change the uncertainty of tomorrow. But each of them reminds you that life itself is still abundant, still offering gifts even in the absence of work. Marcus wrote often of gratitude, though he did not call it by that name. He spoke of being content with what nature gives, of accepting what arrives in each moment as if it had been chosen for you. He knew that to wake, to breathe, to think, to love, these were riches greater than gold or empire, and you begin to see this too. The firing, once overwhelming, narrows in perspective. It is not the whole of life, it is not even the largest part of life.
Life is in the taste of food, the strength of your body, the sound of wind through leaves. Life is in the hand you hold, the friend who listens, the stranger who smiles in passing. These things were always here, but now, in the absence of noise, you notice them more clearly. So you practice. Each morning, you name 3 things you are grateful for. Not grand achievements, not dramatic blessings, but simple truths. The breath in your lungs, the light through the window, the chance to begin again. This practice does not erase difficulty, but it reframes it. The mind, trained to look for what is good, grows calmer, less frantic, less consumed by what is missing. Gratitude becomes not just a feeling, but a discipline, a way of seeing, a way of remembering that life remains abundant even when one door has closed. This is the lesson of gratitude. Happiness is not found in what is gained or lost. It is found in noticing what was always there.
As the weeks pass, you begin to see the firing less as an external event and more as an internal test. For what truly remains to you? Not the role, not the paycheck, not the status. What remains is your character. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The world may take your title. It may strip away security, but it cannot take your integrity. It cannot take your ability to be honest, to be kind, to be just. These are yours to keep if you choose to keep them. So you begin to treat each day not as a search for new work, but as an exercise in character. When you speak to others, do you speak with patience? When you move through your home, do you move with gratitude rather than complaint? When you face small inconveniences, do you practice calm instead of anger? These are the real tasks. These are the real assignments. The world often measures worth in titles, salaries, accomplishments. But Stoicism reminds you the truest work of life is the cultivation of virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. These are the pillars of a good life, the true employment of the soul. So even now, without a job, you are not idle. You are at work the work of being human, at the work of becoming steady, kind, and clear. And this, Marcus would insist, is the only work that never ends. This is the lesson of character. What you do matters less than how you do it. What you earn matters less than who you become.
The days have passed. The nights have been met with calmer sleep. The mind, though not free of worry, no longer races as it once did. And slowly, a new sense of direction begins to form. Not a detailed plan, not a complete map, but the quiet recognition that life continues forward and that you are ready to walk with it. Marcus wrote, "Do not despair of the future, for you will meet it, if you have to, with the same reason you use now. You do not need to solve the whole of life in this moment. You do not need to know exactly where the path leads. You need only to take the next step with clarity. Perhaps that step is polishing your skills. Perhaps it is reaching out to a colleague. Perhaps it is simply continuing your practice of calm and gratitude while you wait for the right door to open. Whatever the step is, it is enough. For the path is not found by staring into the distance. It is built by walking. And as you prepare to walk, you notice something. The firing, which once felt like the end, has become a beginning. You have learned patience. You have practiced presence. You have discovered that your worth is not tied to a role, but to your character. You are ready to carry this forward.
The path ahead is uncertain, but uncertainty is no longer your enemy. It is simply the shape of life, and you are ready to meet it. This is the lesson of the path. It is not laid out for you. It is walked by you. One step, one choice, one day at a time.
The days after upheaval often feel formless. Without the structure of work, time stretches wide and unshaped. Morning blends into afternoon. Evening drifts into night. The hours seem to lose their edges. Marcus Aurelius understood the danger of such formlessness. He reminded himself, "At dawn, when you wake unwillingly, let this thought be present. I am rising to do the work of a human being. Not the work of an emperor, not the work of a soldier, simply the work of being human." So, you begin again with routine. You rise at a set hour, not because an employer demands it, but because your body deserves steadiness. You make your bed, not because anyone will inspect it, but because order in small things ripples into calm for larger ones. You eat at regular times, you walk, you rest, you breathe. These acts, though ordinary, reshape the day. They remind you that life is not lost when schedules vanish. You can build a rhythm of your own. Routine becomes medicine. It steadies the restless mind. It teaches you that dignity is not only in grand achievements, but also in rising, in cleaning, in preparing a meal, in caring for your space. And with each act, you are quietly telling yourself, life continues. I am still here. I still have work worth doing. This is the lesson of routine. Structure is not a prison, it is a compass. It guides you back to yourself when the world has fallen apart.
We live in a world that often ties worth to a job title: director, manager, specialist, coordinator. When the title disappears, the question rises, what am I now? Marcus had no illusions about titles. He knew emperorship itself was fragile, borrowed power, not personal virtue. He wrote, "It is not what you are called, but what you are." So you begin to practice the discipline of work without title. When you cook a meal, you bring to it the care of a chef. When you sweep the floor, you bring to it the focus of a craftsman. When you write, read, or learn, you treat it as important, not because someone pays you, but because attention itself makes the act noble. Work is not just what is seen. Work is what shapes the soul. Each task, no matter how invisible, trains you. Patience, presence, effort, calm. This is labor that no employer assigns, but every life requires. And so you free yourself from the trap of external validation. You work not for applause, not for title, but because it is right to do the thing before you with care. This is the lesson of discipline. Work is not about who notices. It is about who you become in doing it.
With routine reestablished and discipline in place, a question stirs. What now? Marcus lived much of his life as a student. Even as emperor, he studied philosophy, languages, law, and history. He never believed he had arrived. He only believed he was always arriving. And so you too begin again in learning. Perhaps you pick up a book you once set aside. Perhaps you explore a subject that always drew your curiosity but never fit into your schedule. Perhaps you practice a skill with no clear outcome, no guarantee of reward. The act of learning reignites something in you, a spark of curiosity, a sense of growth. When you learn, you remind yourself that your mind is alive. You are not stuck, you are not finished, you are in motion. The firing may have closed one chapter, but it has opened the possibility of new knowledge, new skills, new ways of being. Marcus wrote, "No man is too old to learn what he has not yet learned." And so you take this truth to heart. Learning is not a task of youth. It is the breath of every season of life. This is the lesson of learning. The mind never retires. It only asks for new food, new fuel, new horizons.
As you learn, as you settle into routine, another realization dawns. The deepest meaning is not found in titles or recognition, but in service. Marcus saw this clearly. He believed his role as emperor was not for glory, but for duty, to serve his people, to care for the common good. You may not rule an empire, but you can rule yourself. You can give of yourself. Service is not always dramatic. It is not always heroic. It is the quiet acts. Listening when someone needs to speak, helping a neighbor carry groceries, sending a kind word to someone who feels unseen. Each of these acts is service. Each is purpose. When you orient your days towards service, the sting of status fades. You no longer ask, "What do I have?" but rather, "What can I give?" And in that shift, the world feels lighter. You are no longer trapped by loss. You are engaged in offering. This is the lesson of service. Status fades, titles vanish, but service endures and leaves traces in the hearts of others. At last, you reach a deeper stillness. The firing once seemed like the greatest disruption. Now it has become a turning point, an invitation to ask, what matters most? Marcus returned often to this question. He reminded himself that wealth, fame, and power are fleeting, but values, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, these are the compass points of a steady life. So you sit and reflect. What do you want your days to reflect? Not in the eyes of others, but in your own conscience. Do you want to be known for kindness? Then kindness must guide your steps. Do you want to be steady? Then patience must be your practice. Do you want to be free? Then simplicity must be your ally. This compass of values will outlast every storm. It will guide you in choices big and small. It will keep you oriented, even when the path is unclear. The firing may have shifted your outer world, but in your inner world, you now carry a map more reliable than any job description. This is the lesson of values. A compass within is worth more than a crown without.
The future is a canvas you cannot see. It stretches ahead, blank and uncertain, filled with both possibility and worry. After being fired, fear of that future feels sharp. Will I find work? Will I provide enough? Will I be safe? Marcus faced the same uncertainty, though his stage was larger. He did not know when wars would end, when disease would strike, when betrayal would come. But he wrote, "Do not let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Do not dwell on all the bad things that could happen. Instead, ask yourself, what is the thing I must do now?" So you learn to meet fear not with denial, but with narrowing. Not the whole future at once, just the next step. You cannot solve tomorrow in its entirety, but you can send one message today. You can make one plan. You can take one walk, eat one meal, finish one task.
and each small act becomes a bridge across fear. The future is not yours to control, but the present is always here, waiting for your calm attention. This is the lesson of fear. It shrinks when you return to the step in front of you.
Courage is often imagined as grand gestures, battles fought, mountains climbed, fire leapt through. But Marcus knew courage most often lives in small steps. He wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This too is courage, the courage to live by principle, even in ordinary choices. And so, you begin again with small acts of courage. You update your resume, though the task feels daunting. You reach out to a colleague, though vulnerability feels sharp. You practice an interview, though nerves flutter in your chest. Each act may seem small, but courage is cumulative. One act builds upon another, strengthening the spine, steadying the heart. Soon, you discover that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to step forward while fear is still present. This is the lesson of courage. Begin small. Each step is enough.
The loss of a job often awakens fear of scarcity. What if there isn't enough? What if I lose my home, my comfort, my safety? Marcus often reminded himself of simplicity. He wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." So you begin to practice the economy of enough. You discover that meals can be simple and satisfying. The joy does not always come from buying, but from noticing. That peace is not in more possessions, but in less clutter. Living with enough is not deprivation, it is freedom. You spend less time chasing what is unnecessary. You spend more time present with what is essential. Enough is water. Enough is a roof. Enough is a body still capable of movement. Enough is love, however small or large its circle. This is the lesson of enough. You do not need everything to have enough. Enough already lives here.
You were raised to believe joy comes from accomplishment, from promotions, from praise, from the completion of great goals. But when those achievements vanish, where is joy to be found? Marcus gives the answer quietly. Joy is not in outcomes, but in alignment with nature, in being present, in living in harmony with what is. So you experiment with joy without achievement. You sit and watch the evening sky. You listen to music without multitasking. You share a conversation without checking your phone. You walk slowly, not to arrive anywhere, but simply to walk. And you discover joy again. Not the sharp thrill of victory, but the steady glow of being alive. This joy cannot be taken from you because it does not depend on circumstance. It only depends on attention. This is the lesson of joy. Achievement is optional. Joy is available now.
With fear softened, courage practiced, enough embraced, and joy rediscovered, you notice something stirring: renewal. It does not arrive in grand revelation. It begins in small seeds, a new connection, a spark of curiosity and a fresh opportunity, the quiet confidence that you can weather uncertainty and still be whole. Marcus wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." These seeds of renewal come from within, from gratitude, from patience, from courage and service and values. The firing, once seen only as loss, now becomes a space for new beginnings. Not yet complete, not yet clear,
but real, living, growing. This is the lesson of renewal. Even endings contain beginnings. Life, by its nature, grows again.
Life has always been temporary. Every joy, every sorrow, every role, every title, all of it comes and goes. When you were fired, it felt like the ground vanished. But in truth, the ground was never fixed. It only appeared solid for a time. Marcus wrote often about impermanence. Everything's destiny is to change, to be transformed, to perish, so that new things can come to be. So you learn to hold life lightly. The new job you may one day find will also pass. The struggles you endure now will also fade. Every high and every low is part of this constant flow. Impermanence is not a threat, it is a teacher. It reminds you that clinging causes suffering, while acceptance opens peace. This is the lesson of impermanence. Nothing lasts, and that is why every moment matters.
The firing was painful, but it became a classroom. From routine, you learned steadiness. From discipline, you learned dignity. From learning, you discovered growth. From service, you found meaning. From values, you built a compass. From fear, you found presence. From courage, you practiced small steps. From simplicity, you found enough. From stillness, you uncovered joy. From change, you witnessed renewal. Now you carry these lessons with you, not as heavy burdens, but as light tools. They do not vanish when you return to work. They remain as habits, as reminders, as ways of walking through the world. Marcus wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look. That source now lives within you. This is the lesson of carrying forward. Hardship may end, but wisdom remains."
Before, success meant salary, title, recognition. But those measures failed you. They vanished with one meeting, one decision, one signature. Now, success has been redefined. Success is waking with calm. Success is doing what is before you with care. Success is living in accordance with your values. Success is being kind, even when the world is harsh. Success is peace of mind, unshaken by praise or blame. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Because most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and more peace. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" You ask the same now, and you find success not in more, but in less. Not in being celebrated, but in being whole. This is the lesson of success. To be rich is to need little. To be successful is to live in peace.
You may not think of yourself as a teacher, but every life, lived well, teaches. Your children, your friends, your colleagues, they see how you respond to loss. They see that you did not collapse under firing. They see that you rebuilt calmly, steadily, kindly. Marcus wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And so you are teaching, not with lectures, but with your living. Teaching that worth is not bound to work. Teaching that peace can survive loss. Teaching that resilience is possible. This is the lesson of example. Others may forget your words, but they will remember your steadiness.
At last, you come to rest. The storm of firing has passed. The journey of renewal has unfolded.
The lessons have been gathered, and you stand at the still point, the place Marcus himself reached often in his meditations, a quiet center, a space where nothing is missing. Here you breathe. You release the future, the past, the fear, the striving. You rest in this moment whole. The firing was not the end. It was the teacher. It led you here to peace. Marcus would smile at this and remind you gently, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the final lesson. Peace is always within reach, even in loss, even in change, even now.